Hey everybody, welcome to today's Daily Distinction. I am so glad you are here. We are getting, if you've followed me on Instagram, you know that I forgot to turn it on the other day, and I don't want to do that again today. So how's everybody doing? Hope you're great. Hey to everybody joining us on Instagram, everybody joining us on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and wherever you happen to be watching. Happy Friday. Holiday weekend coming up. Being from Indianapolis, this is a very different kind of weekend. And hey to everybody back home in my home state, because this is Indy 500 week, Indy 500 weekend. And so it's very, very strange not to be thinking about the race and planning on going to the race. We tried to go to the race almost every year, and I'm a big IndyCar fan. So it's very, very different. So, hey, Brian First In, I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Glad you're up there in Wisconsin watching today. Hello, Ted Stark. Happy Friday to you as well. Hope it's going to be a great weekend. You know, it's kind of funny, though, to think about. So what are you doing for Memorial Day? Well, it's kind of what we've been doing every day. I don't know how much it's going to change because of the holiday. But here we go again, right? So anyway, so glad that you're here. I'll take just a moment and ask you to share, if you would, please, whether you're on Instagram watching over here or whether you're on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. It means the world when you take a moment and share it, because that's how we get more folks in here, and I really, really appreciate that. And by the way, if you're watching on the replay, I really appreciate that as well. Man, our numbers are way up in terms of people watching on the replay. And matter of fact, it's always interesting to me how many more people are watching on replay than live. So thank you for doing that. And you can share it when you're on the replay. And I have something just for the viewers here, whether on replay or live, a free gift for you tomorrow. So something free tomorrow, but I'll only I'm not going to post it. You know, I'm not going to broadcast it on my personal Facebook page or my Twitter page or anything like that. We're just going to do it for folks on the Distinction Daily Distinction page and here. So something for you free that we'll talk about here in just a minute. And Ted, the golf courses are open. I haven't swung a golf club for so long, man. I'm telling you what, I saw them in the garage and I'm thinking, holy cow, I've got to get back out there and hit the ball. And I've never been to Top Golf. There was one that was being built in Indy when we were moving out here, and now there's one on the Strip, but it's closed. And I've always wanted to go hit the ball at Top Golf. That'd be so much fun. Pam, yes, we are missing Indy 500 weekend this weekend in Indianapolis. Scott, always great to see you. Thank you. I noticed that you shared the program yesterday, and I really, really appreciate that. Phil, hey, yeah. Oh, no kidding. Well, there you go. It's your connection with motorsports there is very, very cool. I'll remind you, too, about Distinction Nation. Distinction Nation is where we have free resources that you can go to, download. Phil here mentioned a while back that he went through the 14-day audio program on your priorities, on your goals, on your daily activities to help you create personal distinction. It's all there, and it's all for you, absolutely free. All you need to do is go to distinctionnation.com. Well, another day of challenge, right? Here we are. And I shouldn't say that. You set your attitude. And if I get up and say, hey, another day of challenge, then it turns out to be a challenging day. But I will suggest to you that it is another day. Here we go again. It just seems like they're all running together. And part of what we need to use this time to be doing is to be analyzing and fixing the problems that we have. I've said here before, and you'll hear me say it again, we get so busy doing what we do, we don't take enough time to think about what we are doing. And if there's ever a time that we could take a step back and to think about and to consider and reconsider some of the things that are going on in our lives, now would be that time. It'd be a great time to fix some of the challenges that we might have in our business, to fix some of the challenges that we might have personally. How do we go about doing that? Well, as some of you know, my first book was called All Business is Show Business. And the reason that I did that book almost 20 years ago was because I kind of had a double life. Now, it wasn't nearly as exciting or as mysterious as that sounds. It basically means I had one foot in one world, one foot in another. The speaking business was growing and all that was taken off. But also for a decade, I had been a globally syndicated commentator on the entertainment scene. I had the chance to act in a couple of German movies, and one of the movies became a kind of a cult hit, a big success. And Roger Ebert said it was one of the 50 great movies in the history of the cinema. So it got me interested in movie. I was always interested in it, but boy, this, acting in that movie just really put me over the top. It just really got me fascinated by it. WHAS television in Louisville. My wife and I were living in the Louisville area at the time. Gave me the opportunity to be their movie critic, their movie reviewer. And then through a great fortune, I was picked up for syndication by Westinghouse Broadcasting and was syndicated about 100 television stations around the world each week. Well, because of that syndication, it gave me the privilege of interviewing all the stars. I mean, my typical weekend was they would fly me to New York or LA, and you would see a movie on a Friday night. And this was a movie that was going to come out 2 or 3 weeks later, right? So it was a private screening, and you would see the movie at this private screening and on a Friday night, and then you'd go to dinner with the other critics and maybe some of the folks in the studio. And then on Saturday, you'd spend your day interviewing the stars from that movie. And sometimes they even doubled up. You'd see, 2 movies. You'd see a movie on Friday, interview the stars Saturday, see another movie on Saturday night, interview those stars on Sunday, fly home Sunday. Greatest part-time gig in the world, greatest side hustle you could ever imagine, right? It was just fantastic. So one of the things that happened along the way is I got more familiar with the entertainment industry. One of the things that happened along the way is I had interviewed not just stars like Tom Hanks and John Travolta and Robert De Niro and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Meryl Streep and on and on and on, but also the great directors like Quentin Tarantino and Robert Zemeckis and James Cameron and Wes Craven of the Friday the 13th, the Scary Freddy movies, all that. One of the things I realized was there were some things that showbiz was doing that we needed to learn in the businesses that we have, even in terms of our lives. And one of the things that fascinated me about that was what happens when something goes wrong, right? What happens when it doesn't turn out the way you want it to turn out? One of the things I didn't realize was even before we had seen the movie as a critic, there had often been test screenings with test audiences, and they would show the movie to this test audience, and they would evaluate how the audience responded to the movie. And so very, very interesting stories came out of that about how movies got changed because of how the test audiences either liked or didn't like the movie. I'll tell you a couple of those in just a second. Let's check in here with Darcy. Oh, Top Golf is now open again in Fishers. Oh man, back home, Darcy, I'd be swinging a club, seeing what that's like. Phil, you're going through the second time. What doesn't get better than that. Thank you for saying that, Phil. That's he's talking about the 14-day audio program on personal distinction that you can get for free on distinctionnation.com. Hey, Jim Walton, great to see you. Oh man, well, at least there's no blackout this year because they're airing old races. I noticed it's funny because NBC has the contract now for IndyCar, and ABC, ESPN used to, and I've noticed on the ESPN website that you can go watch their old broadcasts of old IndyCar races because Tammy and I, 6 weeks before we got married, went to the IndyCar, the Indy 500 in 2006. And it was the closest race in history, or one of the closest races, second closest race, where Sam Hornish Jr. passes Marco Andretti on the last lap. And we left a little early, and she's never let me forget that over all these years about let's beat the traffic. And we missed the second closest finish in history. So anyway, I'll be watching some of those old races. So here's the scoop of what they do with the test screenings. They will take the movie and they will recruit, and it's typically in places like where I used to live in Thousand Oaks, California, Westlake Village, California. Um, Suburban locations, typically they're in California simply because that way the producer and director and some of the stars can sit in the back. Nobody sees them. Nobody, they can slip out, but they can be there to feel it from an audience. So let me give you one of the ones that changed, and that is Fatal Attraction. Fatal Attraction. I always confuse Fatal Attraction and Basic Instinct. So Fatal Attraction is the Glenn Close, Michael Douglas, right? And Glenn Close doesn't die in the original version of the movie. She lives, and it just is more like a European film where she takes her craziness someplace else, and Michael Douglas's marriage is in a bad spot, and it has a completely different ending. So they're doing the test screening, and the audience is like really into this movie all the way up to the end, and they're like, "What? She gets away with what? What? She boiled the rabbit and she gets away? What?" And so they went back and refilmed the ending, the entire ending, in the scene where, she's in the bathtub and then she pops up out of the bathtub and spoiler alert, and she's killed in the end. And then the audiences go crazy the next time when they tested that. They did a test screening. I sometimes think our life is that way, right? We go through things, we don't get the results that we want. So rather than doing what Hollywood does and say, how can we fix this? We just work harder at the old plan. Does that make sense? We take our old plan and think, well, I better work harder. And don't get me wrong. I mean, yeah, I think I think it's important to work hard, but working harder on the wrong plans isn't going to get you where you need to be. So let's take a look at how Hollywood, how show business fixes their problems. Now, I also want you to remember something really important here. And that is that a lot of times when people think of show business, they tend to think of song and dance and, fun and games and that kind of thing. I mean, Schindler's List was a product of show business. Some of the touching, powerful, dramatic movies you've seen, those are all part of show business. Show business, the purpose of show business is to create an emotional connection, a significant emotional connection with the audience. And the deeper the connection, the greater the results. I think business is the same way. The more that we can create these deep connections with our colleagues and our customers, then the greater likelihood our business is going to be a success. If you're a sales professional, the deeper the emotional connectivity that you have with a customer, the greater likelihood not only they're going to buy from you, but they're going to repeat and refer the business. So it's absolutely critical for all of us to understand these principles and how they might work. Hey, Danny, great to see you. Yeah, I always confuse Fatal Attraction with Basic Instinct. Yeah, right. It's Michael Douglas in both of them and all that. But Basic Instinct was the Sharon Stone, and Fatal Attraction, of course, was Glenn Close. And my wife always said that ought to be part of the requirement, to get a marriage license. You go to the courthouse, you get a blood test, you watch Fatal Attraction, and then they give you the marriage license. So how does showbiz do this? What is the show business method of fixing a problem? Well, we can do a couple of things. Sometimes in a movie, they realize there are parts of it that just drag on too long. Have you ever seen a movie and you think, gosh, it was a good movie at 2 hours. It would have been a great movie at an hour and a half. Seen those? And sometimes when the ego of the director doesn't get in the way, they will re-edit the movie. Or maybe there's something in a movie that the audience just doesn't follow. So what will they do? They'll find a way to maybe move one scene a little bit further up so that now it makes sense of what happens next. So re-editing is a way that you can make improvements. What would make it clearer? What would enhance the emotional impact? Now, notice when they re-edit, they are making something a little tighter, a little more concise. For example, if you're looking at promoting your business, maybe there's something that you need to tighten up, that you're explaining too much, and it needs to be more concise as you communicate with your customers. Maybe as you look at, are you doing this? We are re-editing our home because we realize there's so many things here that we could live without. So how do you re-edit that, right? And it makes you happier. It makes you, you get rid of some of the clutter in your life. You can edit some of that clutter out. All of these are ways that you can tighten up, make it more impactful, whether it is the stories that you tell about your business or the way that you live your life at home. All of us could use a good re-edit. All of us could use a way to make things clearer and more precise and tighter. And so, Reynaldo, as you look at the restaurant business, right? Part of it might be, are there things that we need to re-edit about the experience? When you get going again and things get back to where we want them to be, take a look at everything through the entire story, through the entire experience that a customer has, and say, how do we improve this? How do we make more impact on this? By the way, we think of re-edit as making it tighter, and that's the typical way. But sometimes we make it longer in the sense that maybe it needs a little bit more explanation. Yeah, in a restaurant, for example, you might know what your special dish is, and your regular customers might know what your special dish is. But if I'm a first-time diner, maybe there needs to be a little tent card, or maybe there needs to be a little card or something that says our signature dish is this, and this is why. And on the reverse is maybe a review from a local newspaper, or something's been said on Yelp. Those are ways that we edit so that we help people catch up, right? And that becomes really important. The other thing is, have you noticed that I've mentioned that Tammy and I are binging 24 and going through everything? And it's really something, because at every episode of 24, part of what we're fast forwarding through is, now think about how 24 was originally on. There was one episode a week. So it had been a week since you had seen the previous episode, if you had seen it, right? You might have missed the episode. So at the beginning of every 24, there was a 2-minute segment, 2 minutes, where Kiefer Sutherland says previously on 24. And then it's a 2-minute summary of what's going on to the point that hour is supposed to start. That's re-editing in a way that catches the viewer, catches the customer up with what's happening now. Is there anything on your website that catches a new customer up on the information a current customer would already have? Is there anything that you're doing that could catch somebody up on a story that you think everybody knows? It's one of the ways that we can re-edit what we do to have more impact and make a greater impression on the customers and the colleagues that we seek to serve. Hey, sometimes you need to reshoot some of the scenes. Did you know that Back to the Future had to go back and reshoot? When they were shooting the movie Back to the Future, they had to go back and reshoot the first fourth, maybe even a third of the movie. They had to scrap the film and reshoot it. Then we'll talk about why in a minute, but sometimes you just need to reshoot. One of the examples I used in the book was Dole. Not Bob Dole, but Dole, the produce company. And one of the things that Dole did was they sold heads of lettuce, right? One of the biggest lettuce marketers, sellers on the planet. But what Dole thought is, okay, so how can we reshoot lettuce? How can we reshoot how people, well, what would happen when you got home with a head of lettuce? You would wash the head of lettuce, you would take off maybe the outer layer, and then you would either chop up part of it for that evening's meal, or a lot of times, sometimes you would chop up the entire head of lettuce and put it in a baggie. And so Dole thought, we can make more money if we do that for them. And so Dole reshot lettuce. And now, I don't know about you, but when I'm in the supermarket, I seldom buy a head of lettuce for salad. I buy the pre-packaged, pre-washed, pre-ready to go. But now, it costs more than what it would for me to do it myself. People will pay for convenience. And Dole realized that by reshooting, reimagining, doing it in a different way, that they could create something pretty special. So they reshot their product. We can do the same. Sheila, great to see you. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Sheila. Sheila is a very, very loyal viewer. If you can't see it if you're on Instagram, but Sheila is one of our daily viewers, and she's in the middle of a distressing test. And if folks here could send out a prayer for one of our own here that watches every day, Sheila Curl, that would really, really be appreciated. Sheila is fantastic. Hey, Jeff, always great to see you. Most bartenders know the signature dishes. If you're, yeah, what a great idea. The bartender can, as the bartender is think of that as a production, as a, how could the bartender reshoot it? The bartender could be recommending the signature dish to people that aren't regulars. Oh man, are you here for the, I mean, think about that. In Indianapolis at St. Elmo's, everybody talks about the shrimp cocktail, right? At Indianapolis, that's one of the things you got to do. Well, so you sit down, and when they find out you've never been to St. Elmo's before, they say, man, you're going to have the shrimp cocktail, aren't you? That's what we're known for. You got to have the shrimp cocktail. Why? Well, the cocktail sauce is world renowned. And the Rolling Stones played 2 nights in Indianapolis, not because any was as big as Chicago or LA, obviously. It's because they wanted to eat 2 nights and have the shrimp cocktail 2 nights in a row with us here. So you're going to need to do that, aren't you? Now, see, that's reshooting the bar experience in a way that can truly, truly make a difference. So just look at things differently. How can you reimagine, re-envision what's around you? How can you reshoot that in your life? What can you do? That's the second of the 3. But here's the one that gets challenging sometimes, and that is they recast some of the actors. It just doesn't work with the personnel that they have. And so the reason that they had to reshoot the first third of Back to the Future is because Michael J. Fox was not cast in the leading role. It was Eric Stoltz. Eric Stoltz, who probably his most famous role is in Mask, remember, with Cher. He was originally cast as Marty McFly in Back to the Future. And after shooting about a third of the film, the story goes, they just realized it just wasn't working. By the time they realized that, shooting was done for the season for Family Ties. Michael J. Fox had an opening in his schedule, and they scrapped the first third of the film, reshot everything with Michael J. Fox, and the rest, as they say, is history. Look, sometimes there are people in your cast, the cast of characters in your life, the cast of characters in your business that you keep around simply because, well, I've put them in the movie. I guess they have to stay. And the fact is they don't. They don't. You can recast your business. You can let the employees go that are creating a challenge for you and a challenge for your customer. You can let the people in your life go who are creating challenges and problems and difficulties for you. You can change the cast, the supporting characters in your film, and it ends up being a better film. I don't think anybody would argue that Back to the Future was a better movie because it was Michael J. Fox instead of Eric Stoltz. I don't think too many people would argue that Mask was a better movie because it was Eric Stoltz instead of Michael J. Fox. In other words, just because someone is let go from one production doesn't mean they're not right for a different one. Just because you let somebody go in your business doesn't mean they won't find a better place in someone else's. Just because you remove someone from the cast of characters in your life doesn't mean they won't be better off in the cast with someone else. But the fact is, we have to look at that as a critical part. I mean, the original Archie Bunker was going to be Mickey Rooney, not Carol O'Connor. Tom Selleck was originally cast as Indiana Jones, not Harrison Ford. The fact of the matter is, changing casts is part of what can make a very, very successful production. Danny, yes, you're exactly right. It can be life-changing when you change the cast of people around you, when you change the cast of people that are in the role in your film. Hey, Pam, you like that story? I'll look forward to that. All right, we will absolutely do that when we get back. So the challenge for us is to think about how we can re-edit, how we can reshoot, and how we can recast. When we apply this showbiz method to fixing the problems in our lives, well, then we can live more productively and have a hit production on our hands. Hey, I promised you something free, and that is tomorrow only. Tomorrow only. My book, All Business is Still Show Business, the ebook version will be free on Amazon. But the only people that know about it are the folks involved with Daily Distinction. So I have posted the link on our Daily Distinction Facebook page. You go to that link, but it won't be free until tomorrow. Now, if you already have Kindle Unlimited, if you subscribe to Kindle Unlimited on Amazon, you can go there and get it free right now. But if you don't subscribe to Kindle Unlimited, then the ebook will be free for you starting tomorrow. The link for that is available on the Daily Distinction Facebook page. And I'm going to let people on Twitter and others know that it's there. But the only way that you can get the book free is the link is on the Daily Distinction Facebook page. But that book is absolutely free for you if you'd like to read more about this, because this is some of the material that's in the All Business is Still Show Business book. If you'd like to read more about it, if you would like to read the book, and if you'd like to take advantage of the freebie, it is there for you. All you got to do is go to the Facebook page for Daily Distinction, and you can download the All Business is Still Show Business book absolutely free onto your Kindle. It's just one of the ways I'm trying to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Ted, I didn't want to hear that recast, but I needed to. Ted, I appreciate that. Of all of them, I think that's the hardest one, right? I mean, we can re-edit, we can reshoot, we can make those decisions on our own. Sometimes the activity might involve somebody else, but we can say, hey, I'm going to re-edit. I'm going to change some things. I'm going to reshoot how I look at things. But the recast always involves somebody else. And I think you're exactly right. I think that's why it is the hardest one of all. But sometimes I can't imagine that All in the Family would have been as big a hit with Mickey Rooney in the lead. And there's a lot of you watching that have no idea who I'm talking about here. Hey, Dan LeClaire, good to see you on. Can you imagine Tom? I mean, I love Tom Selleck. We watch Blue Bloods every week, but I can't imagine Indiana Jones would have been as big a hit with Tom Selleck as Indy as opposed to Harrison Ford. It just seems like Harrison Ford is the perfect person that should have been doing that. So recasting is part of the key that can help make it a hit. But it always involves letting it go, which is something we talked about earlier this week, if you want to go back and catch that one. So that does it for the day's Daily Distinction. As always, I'm here at 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific, here 7 days a week. So I will be seeing you, I hope, tomorrow with another episode of Daily Distinction. Thank you so much for viewing. Thank you for sharing. And I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.